My cruel mother treated me like an unwelcome guest in their own home. One day, while I was working on a painting, trying to find some joy in the chaos of my life, the living room was a bit messy, but nothing unusual for an artist. Suddenly, my mother stormed in, her face contorted with rage. "You idiot! Why did you destroy my living room with this junk?" she yelled, her voice echoing off the walls. Before I could respond, she slapped me hard across the face, sending a stinging pain through my cheek. As if that wasn't enough, she grabbed my nearly finished painting and smashed it against the edge of the table, tearing it apart. Her actions, fueled by pure spite, left me heartbroken and humiliated. Then, with a look of disgust, she grabbed a bucket of red paint and poured it over my head, drenching me in sticky humiliation. My name is Claire Morgan, and I'm 23 years old. Growing up in Madison, Illinois, I always felt like I didn't belong in my family. My parents, Catherine and William, made it clear that their pride and attention belonged to my older brother Ethan. He was their golden child, intelligent, charming, and endlessly praised. In their eyes, Ethan could do no wrong, and I could do nothing right. I was different. While Ethan excelled in academics and sports, I found solace in painting. For me, painting wasn't just a hobby, it was a lifeline. The moments I spent blending colors on a canvas made me feel alive, as if I were creating a world that truly understood me. But to my parents, my passion for art was an embarrassment. They dismissed it as childish and unworthy of serious effort. "Why waste your time on something so useless?" my mother would often say, her voice sharp and cold. My father rarely spoke about it, but his silence spoke volumes. They both believed I should focus on more practical goals, like Ethan, who was already pursuing law school with their full support. Living under their roof felt suffocating. My paintings, which brought me joy, were treated like clutter. I was constantly reminded that my dreams didn't matter and that I was falling short of their expectations. It was as though the walls of our home echoed their disappointment in me. Despite their disapproval, I refused to give up on painting. Late at night, when the house was quiet, I would sit in my room and let my brush guide me. Each stroke of color felt like a rebellion, a small victory against their lack of belief in me. Painting was the only time I felt free. Ethan, of course, never faced this kind of scrutiny. My parents supported him unconditionally, showering him with praise for every accomplishment. Meanwhile, I felt invisible, my efforts unnoticed and unappreciated. As the years passed, their favoritism became more unbearable. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't bridge the gap between their expectations and my reality. I was simply Claire, the girl with a head full of dreams they didn't understand and didn't want to. Little did I know, the breaking point was just around the corner. What began as a quiet evening spent painting would soon unravel everything, forcing me to make a choice that would change my life forever. It was a quiet evening, and I was sitting in the living room, completely absorbed in my latest painting. I had been working on it for weeks, a vibrant piece inspired by a sunset I'd seen in a magazine. The colors of gold and blue blended together perfectly, creating a serene and radiant image. My brush moved with purpose, and for a moment, I felt a sense of peace. As I reached for more paint, a few drops spilled onto the wooden floor. I didn't notice at first, too focused on perfecting the strokes of my brush. But my peaceful moment shattered when my mother, Catherine, walked into the room. Her sharp gasp snapped me out of my concentration. "Claire, what on earth are you doing to my floor?" she yelled, her voice cutting through the silence. I looked down, realizing the small stains I had accidentally made. "I'm sorry, Mom," I stammered. "It's just a little paint. I'll clean it up." "Clean it up?" she interrupted, her tone rising. "This is exactly why I told you to stop this nonsense. Look at the mess you've made." Before I could respond, she marched toward my easel, her eyes locked on my nearly finished painting. "Is this what you've been wasting your time on?" she spat, grabbing the canvas. "Mom, no! Please don't!" I cried, reaching for the painting, but I was too late. With a single motion, she smashed it against the edge of the table, tearing the canvas in half. The ripping sound felt like it had come from my chest. My heart sank as I stared at the destroyed painting, something I had poured my soul into. "Why would you do that?" I yelled, tears streaming down my face. Her face twisted with anger as she turned toward me. "Because this is a waste of time, Claire. Hard work isn't playing with paints. Hard work is doing something meaningful with your life. When I tried to speak, she silenced me with a slap. The sting burned my cheek, and I stumbled backward in shock. You'll thank me one day, she said coldly, when you're not living in some fantasy world. Before I could gather myself, she grabbed a nearby bucket of red paint and poured it over my head. The thick liquid drenched my hair, face, and clothes, running down in sticky streams. You look as ridiculous as your dreams, she sneered. Now clean this mess up before your father gets home. She left the room, leaving me standing there, humiliated, heartbroken, and furious. The moment the door slammed behind her, I stood frozen, drenched in red paint. My mind swirled with humiliation, anger, and heartbreak. The ruined canvas, torn and crumpled on the floor, felt like a physical representation of how little my dreams mattered to her. I wiped at my face, smearing the sticky paint, but the tears kept coming. I couldn't stay here anymore. This wasn't just about the destroyed painting. It was years of being ignored, dismissed, and treated as a failure. This was my breaking point. I ran to my room, grabbed my bag, and started packing. I didn't need much, just the things that mattered to me. My sketchbook, some clothes, and the small jar of savings I had managed to collect over the years. I glanced around my room one last time, my heart heavy. Despite the pain, it still felt like home. But not anymore. Stepping out into the cold night, I didn't look back. I didn't know exactly where I was going, but one name came to mind. Aunt Olivia. She was the only person in my family who had ever supported my love for art. She had always encouraged me, telling me I had talent even when everyone else doubted me. I hoped she'd take me in. When I reached her house, it was nearly midnight, and I hesitated before knocking. The door opened almost immediately, and Olivia stood there, her eyes widening when she saw me. "Claire," she said, concern etched on her face. "What happened?" The tears I'd been holding back spilled over. "Mom, she destroyed my painting. She slapped me, poured paint on me, and said I'm wasting my life." My voice cracked as I spoke, and Olivia pulled me into a warm hug. "Come inside," she said softly, guiding me to the couch. She handed me a towel and a glass of water, waiting until I calmed down. "You don't deserve this, Claire," she said firmly. "You're talented and your dreams matter. If they can't see that, it's their loss. You can stay here as long as you need." Her words were like a balm to my wounded heart. For the first time in years, I felt seen and understood. That night, I fell asleep in her guest room, feeling safe for the first time in a long time. I didn't know what my next step would be, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going back. The days that followed were a blur of emotions. I woke up in Aunt Olivia's home, the weight of my decision to leave still fresh. But her support was unwavering. She didn't just give me a place to stay, she gave me hope. "You need to focus on your art," she told me one morning over coffee. "You've got a gift, Claire. Don't let anyone, not even your parents, take that from you." Her words reignited something in me. With her encouragement, I enrolled in an art class at the local community center. Walking into that studio for the first time, I felt a sense of belonging. The smell of paint, the blank canvases waiting to be filled. It was a world that felt like home. My instructor, Miss Franklin, was a seasoned artist with a sharp eye and a kind heart. She saw potential in my work and pushed me to experiment with new techniques. Slowly, my confidence began to grow. Each completed piece felt like a small victory, a step away from the doubt my parents had planted in me. Aunt Olivia continued to be my biggest cheerleader. One evening, she surprised me with news that would change everything. "Claire, I want you to meet someone," she said with a smile. "A friend of mine, Mr. Carter, owns a gallery downtown. I've told him about your work, and he's interested in seeing it." I was nervous but excited. When I met Mr. Carter, he studied my portfolio with a thoughtful expression. "Your style is raw, emotional," he said finally. "It tells a story. I'd like to feature some of your pieces in a small exhibition we're hosting next month." I could hardly believe it. An exhibition?
Me.
I thanked him repeatedly, my heart racing with a mix of disbelief and joy. The weeks leading up to the exhibition were a whirlwind of preparation. I poured my heart into creating pieces that told my story, of resilience, heartbreak, and hope. When the day arrived, I stood in the gallery, watching people admire my work. For the first time, I felt validated, Not by my family, but by strangers who saw the value in what I created. By the end of the night, I had sold 2 paintings. The small checks felt like much more than money. They were proof that I was on the right path. My dreams were no longer just dreams. They were becoming my reality. The months following the exhibition felt surreal. My confidence soared as my paintings gained attention. I moved into a small studio apartment in Chicago, a space where I could fully immerse myself in my art. My days were spent surrounded by canvases and brushes, creating pieces that told stories of pain, hope, and transformation. Then came the invitation that changed everything. Mr. Carter called one afternoon, his voice filled with excitement. "Claire, your work is making waves. A well-known art critic wants to feature your paintings in an upcoming exhibition at a prestigious downtown gallery." I could hardly breathe. This was the opportunity one had dreamed of. "Of course," I said, my hands trembling with excitement. The weeks leading up to the event were filled with long hours and late nights. I poured every ounce of emotion into my work, determined to make this exhibition my best yet. When the day finally arrived, I stood in the gallery, surrounded by my paintings, feeling a mix of pride and nerves. The turnout was overwhelming. People admired my work, many placing bids on my pieces. One painting, titled Rebirth, held a special place in my heart. It symbolized my journey from pain to empowerment. As I stood near it, soaking in the moment, I noticed 2 familiar faces walk through the door. My parents. My chest tightened. They looked uncomfortable, out of place in the elegant gallery. My mother's eyes scanned the room before landing on me. For a moment, she hesitated, then approached with my father trailing behind her. "Claire," my mother began, her voice softer than I had ever heard it. "Your aunt told us about the exhibition. We wanted to see it for ourselves." I crossed my arms, my heart pounding. "Why?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. "To remind me how my dreams were a waste of time." My father looked down, guilt written all over his face. My mother fidgeted with her purse strap. "No," she said quietly. "We came to apologize. We were wrong about everything." I stared at them, their words stirring a storm of emotions. "You destroyed my painting. You threw me out of the house. Do you think an apology erases all of that?" Tears welled in her eyes. "We know we hurt you, Claire, and we'll regret it forever." I took a deep breath, my voice firm. "I appreciate your apology, but I don't need your approval anymore. I've built a life I'm proud of, and I won't let anyone take that from me." They nodded, quietly leaving. For the first time, I felt free. The gallery quieted as the last guest departed, but my heart was still racing. The exhibition had been a success beyond my wildest dreams. Most of my paintings had sold, and the recognition I had long sought was finally within reach. Yet, my parents' unexpected visit lingered in my mind. Their apology was genuine, but I knew better than to base my happiness on their acceptance. I had fought too hard to let anyone define my worth. In the weeks that followed, my career flourished. The Art Critics feature brought even more attention to my work, and I began receiving commissions from clients who wanted pieces tailored to their stories. Each canvas became a new chapter in my journey, and with every stroke of my brush, I felt a deep sense of purpose. Inspired by the support I had received from Aunt Olivia and the opportunities that had come my way, I decided to give back. Using my earnings, I opened a small gallery of my own. The space wasn't just for my art, it became a platform for emerging artists who faced struggles like mine. I wanted to create a community where talent was nurtured and celebrated, no matter what obstacles stood in the way. One day, as I stood in my gallery, watching a group of young artists hang their work for an upcoming show, I felt an overwhelming sense of fulfillment. My life, once defined by rejection and doubt, was now filled with color and creativity. Aunt Olivia visited often, her pride in my achievements shining brighter than any spotlight. "You've created something amazing, Claire," she said during one of her visits. "Your success isn't just in your art, it's in the lives you're touching." Her words stayed with me. Looking back, I realized how far I had come. The pain of my past no longer defined me. It had fueled my growth. My parents' rejection, though deeply hurtful, had pushed me to find my voice and follow my dreams. In a way, their actions had led me to the life I now cherished. Standing in the gallery one evening, surrounded by the work of both my hands and the artists I mentored, I felt at peace. My journey hadn't been easy, but it had been worth every struggle. I had turned my pain into something beautiful, proving to myself, and to the world, that I was capable of greatness. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up. Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you think. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story that inspires, uplifts, and entertains. Your support means the world to me. Until next time, stay creative and keep dreaming.